10 programs cancelled after one episode. When a show you really enjoy is abruptly cancelled, you are left without a conclusion, a solution, or any hope for the characters you adore. At least you weren't a fan of one of these shows, so look on the bright side. It's understandable that each show on this list was cancelled after just one episode. These programs are regarded as some of the worst, despite the fact that some of them were cancelled due to poor ratings and others for much more scandalous reasons. 10. Comedy. Attempts to use internet comedy on television almost never succeed. The internet, for one, moves quickly. Since TV production typically takes so long, the gags frequently go stale by the time the program airs. Additionally, computer-savvy individuals are aware of when they're being pandered to and will not fall for TV heavyweights pushing cool humor in their faces. Unexpectedly, though, the concept of bringing internet comedy to television is not as novel as you may believe. Comedy debuted in 2000, years before the majority of other shows attempted to capitalize on internet humor. It's odd since they turned out to be polar opposites, but the show included Jason and Randy Soler, Annabelle Gurwitch, and Katie Puckrick in a style that was reminiscent of America's Funniest Home Videos. Comedy was cancelled soon after its debut, but AFV has been on the air since the 1980s. In addition to the mixed reviews it received, fewer viewers, 4.1 million, than the show it replaced watched the show overall. The outcome was that the show was terminated before it could run any additional episodes. 9. In the picture. With a history going back to 1961, this is one of the first instances of a series being cancelled after just one episode. The great Jackie Gleason hosted the game show. Sounds good enough, doesn't it, in order to try and determine what scene they were a part of, for celebrities would bury their heads in an image and then pose yes or no questions. Its basic idea is comparable to several games that are still played around coffee tables today. You can also consider one of the scenes from Whose Line Is It Anyway?, which makes use of a green screen and questions and answers to reveal the identity of the film playing behind the unaware comedian panelists on You're in the Picture's inaugural episode. Pat Carroll, Arthur Treacher, Jan Sterling, and Pat Harrington Jr. proved to be its downfall. They weren't humorous enough to carry a game show, especially when paired with a comedy heavyweight like Gleason, aside from the fact that they were lousy at the game. It is understandable why Time magazine deemed the 1960 to 1961 television season to be the worst ever at the time. The presentation was so terrible that the following week, Gleason utilized the time slot to publicly apologize for it, and it was never again broadcast. 8. The Melting Pot. Another well-known comic, this time Spike Milligan of The Goon Show and Q, had a disastrous performance, but this time it wasn't only because it wasn't amusing. Hosting a game show with perplexed competitors is one thing, but making a show where you appear in brown face is plain terrible, for good reason. Comedy Playhouse, The Melting Pot only broadcast once, in 1975, and then never again. In the program, Milligan took on the role of an illegal Pakistani immigrant who lived in a multiracial London home and entered the country with his son. Unsurprisingly, even at the time, this was quite contentious. After watching one program, the BBC realized they had made a terrible error. The remaining episodes were never shown because the show was cancelled. 7. Co-ed Fever. Early in 1979, ABC showed Delta House, a sequel to the renowned comedic movie Animal House. The filthy material of the film was not permitted on TV, despite the fact that the show wasn't terrible. After one season, it was ultimately cancelled. Even yet, it is somewhat astounding considering how challenging it is to successfully adapt a movie for television. Overall, the show was passable, with Co-ed Fever the same year, CBS attempted to capitalize on the trend. The unique plot twist of the play involved the first-ever admission of men to a women's college. Or at least there would have been antics. Similar to Delta House, this show had issues with the types of tales they could air, and on top of that, the numbers were abysmal. The further programs were never shown in America. 6 Videos After Dark. Everyone has watched America's Funniest Home Videos at least once. It is a popular program. It has continued for several years and shows no indications of stopping. However, that does not imply that each of its endeavors has been a huge success. A more contemporary example of a show that was cancelled after one episode is Videos After Dark. The 2019 show, which included edgier footage than the main program, was created to be like AFV for an older audience. Bob Saget was supposed to be the original AFV host. The program debuted as scheduled, and further episodes were promised, but oddly nothing appears to have happened. The following month, the show's Twitter stopped publishing, and despite the fact that the show's website still reads "Coming Soon," everyone seemed to act as if it had never even happened. 5 Emily's Reasons Why Not. The most recent instance of a show being cancelled after one episode is Videos After Dark. With edgier footage than the main show, the 2019 airing program was created to be like AFV for an older audience. Bob Saget was scheduled to serve as the original AFV host. Although additional episodes were promised after the planned release, strangely nothing seems to have happened. Despite the fact that the show's webpage still reads "Coming Soon," its Twitter account stopped updating the following month, and everyone seemed to act as if it had never ever existed. Unfortunately, the actual show fell short of the advertisements. Everyone in the globe appeared to have thought it was incredibly boring and not worth watching. The subsequent episodes were never broadcast on American television once the network received the message, however they were later released on DVD. For Who's Your Daddy? Reality television isn't exactly regarded as being elegant. It is frequently seen as mind-numbing rubbish that is solely watched for pleasure. Of course, not all reality television is like that. In fact, some are well accepted. One of these is not Who's Your Daddy? Who's Your Daddy, a show from 2002, focused on the difficult topic of adoption. It places an adopted woman in a room with a number of males, and if she can identify her biological father among them, she is awarded a financial prize. If she chooses the incorrect man, he will receive the monetary award. Surely it is simple to comprehend why this would be viewed as a little cringeworthy. The reaction was outraged when its debut installment, a 90-minute special, hit the airwaves. Adoption support groups and adoptive parents detested this program because it added cash and cameras to an intensely private procedure. In the midst of the criticism, the show was abruptly cancelled. 3 Heil Honey, I'm Home. It is pretty simple to infer why this was cancelled just from the title. Despite the widespread belief that everything may be made fun of, some topics just should not be the basis for a sitcom. This 1990 disaster is undoubtedly one of the most divisive sitcoms of all time. Along with The Melting Pot, the structure of the program was similar to 1950s sitcoms, except that it followed Eva Braun and Adolf Hitler as they attempted to get along with their Jewish neighbors. Unsurprisingly, this received a great deal of criticism. The Board of Deputies of British Jews strongly objected to it, and no one else on earth appeared to think it amusing. Fortunately, the message reached the BSB. Despite being abruptly cancelled, Heil Honey, I'm Home is still one of the most well-remembered programs on our list. 2 Turn On. Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In is remembered with a lot of affection. What's not to love about the vividly colorful sets, the clever one-liners, and the creative joke wall? Turn On was developed by ABC once they realized how envious they were of all the attention Laugh-In was receiving. Unfortunately, Turn On was one of TV's biggest flops while Laugh-In was a huge success. The show was very dissimilar to anything anyone had ever seen. Not only was it raunchier than Laugh-In, but it was also moving so quickly that most viewers struggled to keep up. A Moog synthesizer, which was brand new in 1969, provided the soundtrack, and computers were heavily featured in the plot of the show. The audience could not stand the show at all. More objections were directed at the station's sexual content than at its unusual format. Before the first episode had even ended, the show was cancelled. It was never again observed. Who knows, perhaps things might be different if this show had been produced now. 1. Australia's Naughtiest Home Videos. The most well-known item on the list may be this one. It's basically Australia's version of Videos After Dark, although this program first aired in 1992. It's special in that it only ran for a partial episode before being discontinued. The program was intended to be a raunchier version of America's Funniest Home Videos, similar to Videos After Dark. While Australia's Naughtiest Home Videos received a generally negative response, Videos After Dark received a mixed response. The videos featured a man spinning a basketball on his penis and a youngster eating maggots. Nobody seems to want to see any of that, it seemed. The show was requested to be taken off the air after 34 minutes, and it was. Instead, a Cheers rerun was shown, to the apparent delight of viewers. The entire program did eventually air in 2008, and it is now available to view online without charge. But beware, it is disgusting and not very humorous otherwise.